Heckles may come in many volumes. That's what's coming up on the Art of Bombing, episode 250.
My friend Dan, he's got a podcast, 'cause all comics need a podcast, and nobody had a podcast called The Art of Bombing. So Dan went out and bought a tape deck. Who knows why he bought a tape deck? Podcasts don't get played on tape decks, but Dan is from the 80s. So hey there, all you funny jerks, come talk to Dan about your work. Tell him all about your worst times. It's The Art of Bombing.
Welcome to a brand new episode of The Art of Bombing. I am your host, Dan Bublitz Jr., and with me as always is my co-host, co-producer, Josh Shirley, tuning in all the way from Chicago, Illinois. He is out there on the road, tuning in with spotty internet, hotel internet, so who knows if he disappears.
Yeah. I'm staying at the Hyatt, but my internet connection says Toby's iPhone, so hopefully Toby
doesn't kick you off.
Doesn't leave his room.
Yeah.
Because
that checks out though.
We'll see how
for hotel internet. Yet sometimes you do just have to connect to random people's internet.
Oh yeah, Toby much stronger than Roxanne, and definitely better than the hotel across the street. This is working out. We're a part of the same conversation, I think. So Dan,
that's great. Yeah.
Here's something that can I get serious for a second?
Oh, okay. You can get serious if you want to get serious. So
I've been performing.
Yeah.
I've been doing
some comedy.
Some journaling some comedy. Been doing some journaling here. I think the comic dorks listening to this podcast will get. First of all, this is a good episode to get just super nerdy and get crazy, and we'll talk about why.
Oh, absolutely. This is a good episode for that.
Yeah, so let's lead off with this. I think when I'm at my best and I'm having a good show, I think sometimes it's because I'm letting the audience affect me, and I'm letting them see that they affect me. And here's what I mean. So, like I'm telling jokes, and in response, there's laughter.
Okay, that's a good thing. We want that in comedy.
Yeah, all right. So the table.
So far, we're good.
So far, so good. And laughter is their contribution to the conversation of comedy, right? So comedy's not like a lot of other art forms. You watch a ballet, you watch a play. Now in stand-up comedy, the audience essentially has a role to play, and that's to enjoy the show. Most of the time that means physical, audible laughter that contributes to what's going on. When the audience laughs and you step on you step on a laugh before you move to your next joke, a lot of times you aren't appreciating their response to the conversation. It's as if you're interrupting them when they're in the middle of a sentence. And so what's been interesting to me as I've gotten more comfortable on stage, I'm allowing for longer periods of silence and staying more comfortable before I rush into the next bit. And so I'm finding that I'll tell a joke, it's funny, people laugh, I give it a second to make sure that their contribution to the conversation is fully over before moving on. And I've been surprised at how often it's not what I used to think it was in terms of what their response time is. So I think that's one aspect of it, is essentially allowing the audience to give you their response. And when you let them have that full response, they physically see that it's affected you in the timing of the next joke. And then psychologically, they're impacted because they go, oh, wait, I'm a part of this too. I just affected him by laughing at the joke, and now I want to be a part of this too. And that invites them to come in and start laughing more. And I've seen a lot of comics who are either doing this sort of nonverbal communication with the audience that is saying to them, "Oh, you're making me more comfortable." Where I think one of the best, I haven't really noticed it until this came up on a YouTube playlist that I just had running while I was doing dishes recently, and I saw Louis C.K. performing back in 2004, and he's doing some joke about being broke. Right. So I don't know if you've heard it, but essentially it's the ridiculousness of getting charged money for not having enough money in your bank account. That's the premise, and he goes off on that. Fine. But it's his opening set, because at the beginning of whatever video this is, it's kind of okay. And ladies and gentlemen, Louis C.K. And so it's his opening. In the beginning, he's holding his water, he's holding the microphone, and he's, and as the audience laugh, he kind of gives them a physical cue, in addition to waiting for the laughs and all the things we've talked about, that says, "You're making me feel more comfortable. I'm setting my water down. I'm taking the mic off the stand." And it essentially, a lot of those things felt randomized to me before, but I've started to incorporate this sense of kind of telegraphing to the audience more, what you're doing is making me feel and act a certain way. And it doesn't always have to be negative. We always assume when an audience member does something to make you feel a certain way, we assume heckling, we assume bombing, we assume something like that. But you can change that and use the same psychology to say, your laughs are making me more comfortable, and people are going to want to do it more because they see it affect you. It's interesting. That was my observation.
Well, that's a heck of an observation. That really is. It is a good point. I mean, it goes to show not just, being able to be aware of it, but also, if you talk to comics who've been doing it a long time, they'll tell you regardless, you need to pause after every joke and wait for that laughter. Whether the audience gives it to you or not, you still need to pause. And if it just silence, sit in that silence, because you do have to give them time. Because you're right, it's easy to step on laughs. And not only when you, like you said, when you treat it as a conversation and you step on a laugh, you're interrupting them and their part of this conversation, but you're also setting yourself up for that bad communication, because if you go into your next joke and then by the time you get to your punchline, that audience didn't hear your setup because they were still laughing, and now they're confused. So it definitely, it's a good observation on how it is like a two-way conversation. And if you don't, have the, respect to them to let them finish their thought, then you can't go on to your next thought without confusing them. There's a communication breakdown that can definitely happen there. So
lots of comics, including ones we've had on this show several times, mention that fact, but no one's really gone into why. And yeah, I just thought that'd be a good look at that, or a good opinion on it for people who, when they hear advice like that, why?
Oh yeah, I think that's like I said, that's a really good deep dive into that, like a psychological, kind of look into the pausing for a joke, waiting for those laugh breaks and stuff. But it is definitely a good look, and it's a good lead in, because today, this is a super comedy nerd conversation. Like our guest today, I know we alluded to it, but we hadn't got there. Our guest today is a very well known comedian. You may have heard them on the Dork Forest Podcast. Our guest today is Jackie Kashian, and I'm excited that she was on the podcast. I was excited that we were able to do it. We went back and forth trying to schedule this. We've been working on this for, over a couple of years, probably, or at least a year.
Wow.
Yeah, we've been going back and forth, and it just didn't work out. Timing just didn't work out. And then an opportunity came. She was available, and I took it. And so I do want to preface this episode and just say, just to give a heads up, it is a little shorter than normal conversations because I had some technical issues. I had to record differently, and then I didn't have a lot of time with that recording, and it just, we had to rush it a little bit, but it was still a very good conversation because Jackie had so much valuable insight on comedy and such a great perspective. So it's a great episode that we got coming up today. I do want to mention, that she's going to be at the Plano Comedy Festival, and she's headlining, I think, Saturday, October 15th, and I just want to say that that's going to be awesome, because guess who else is going to be at the Plano Comedy Festival?
Who?
Oh, I think it's this guy. It's
that guy right
me.
there?
Yeah, it's me. Yeah, I'm going to be at the Plano Comedy Festival as well.
Get down there, everybody.
Yeah, I'm not going to be on the same show as Jackie. I'm not, but I'm going to be on some other shows. I got a show Friday at the House of Comedy, and then I have a show Saturday at the Performing Arts Center. I don't remember the name right on the top of my head. I don't have all the info there, but yeah, but we're both going to be in Plano, Texas for the Plano Comedy Festival. If you're in the Dallas, Plano area, come see one of the shows. Go see her. Go see one of the showcases that I'm on. It'll be great. It's going to be a good time this weekend. And of course, you can find all the information for that at the PlanoComedyFestival.com. So yeah, that's what this. I think. I don't know about you. Are you ready to get into this? This is a great week because I forgot. It's my birthday week. Did you know that? It's my birthday week, and this is a great way to celebrate. This is a great way to celebrate my birthday.
How good is this, man? This is a significant ad. Congrats to you, not only for having another birthday, but for getting her on, man. This is great. People are going to love this. This is one of my favorite episodes for this year. Let's get to it.
All right, let's do it. All right, here is our conversation with Jackie Kashian. Enjoy. Hey, Bomb Squad, Dan here, and I wanted to let you know that we've completely overhauled the Art of Bombing Patreon page. We've made some changes, improvements, and added some cool new perks that we think you'll enjoy, such as early access to new episodes. They're going to be ad-free, host-free. They get right to the conversation. Another cool perk that we've added are re-released episodes. That's right, every week we're re-releasing a new old episode of the podcast. Right now on the Patreon feed, you can get episodes 1 through 9, and every week we're going to be re-releasing a new old episode. Another cool perk that we're going to be providing are resources, comedy resources, such as email templates, checklists, and all kinds of fun stuff that are going to be coming from the Between Bombs series. We're going to be doing monthly and quarterly Q&As and hangs, so you're not going to want to miss out. Go to our Patreon page, subscribe now. It's patreon.com/artofbombingpod and sign up right now.
And now it's time for the stand-up soundbite.
You know how people are just a stack of meat, right? With a brain on top, and then we all have different sausage casings, right? And then we all meet the sausage casing. I meet the sausage casing, and I meet people. I'm like, I would never sleep with that sausage casing. I will only sleep with that sausage casing. I don't enjoy that kind of sausage. Please do not use the sausage analogy for cannibalism. Now, but it's just I love the idea of it. And the gold standard, of course, of sausage casings is your straight white guy. But a straight white guy is just a stack of meat with a brain on top, too. But 1,000 years ago, you guys called shotgun, right? I don't know how it happened, but you're like, no, we're the only ones who get to make regrettable decisions. We like beer. We want to be on the Supreme Court. And we're like, no, we all like beer. We all want to be on the Supreme Court. Nah, you wouldn't like it. You wouldn't like it.
It's the art of bombing.
How's it going, Dan? Besides
your
technology issues.
Aside from that, it's going great. Yeah,
it's pretty sweet.
Technology this morning. Yeah, now I'm panicked.
No sweat. No sweat.
I'm like, oh no, I'm going to be panicked about my setup all day, but we'll get it figured out later. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm glad we're finally able to make this work out.
Yeah, I was like, I have like 19 new emails, and I responded to 17 of them by going, email me in 2 weeks. And then I was like, I have tomorrow morning before noon open, so let's do this.
Yeah, I'm
glad you're that flexible. Thank you.
I was actually driving back from Minneapolis when I got the email, and I was like, well, I'm jumping on this opportunity. I'm going to take it while I can. So
right, it's going to be. When will this go up? Because I'm in Minneapolis. I'm flying there tomorrow, but I'm doing shows the 7th.
Oh, are you? I don't know if it'll go up probably the following week. So just before the Plano Comedy Festival.
That's it. Go. If you're in Texas,
Yep,
That's where I'll be.
exactly. I'll be there too.
And then I'll be in Michigan. Okay, nice. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm on the festival as well, so that'll be a good
Super
time.
fun. Yeah, that'll be great.
Yeah, it'll be a good time. I'm looking forward to it. It's I'm glad that they're pretty much doing the same lineup they were going to do last year, because they postponed it or whatever. So I was glad to see the same people are still on it.
Yeah, they had to move it around because of the plague, because of the COVID.
That's well, hopefully there's a little less of that now than there was then. So
I think it's more of a lateral move. We may just have to learn to keep moving.
Yep.
And
you're not wrong about that. We definitely have to do that. Again, thank you for doing this. I've been wanting to have you on for a while now, because I actually heard you on my friend's podcast, who I'm a big Brett Singer's podcast.
What was that one?
That's the comic book.
Oh yeah.
Comics who love comic books. So
there you go. I do indeed.
Yep. We have a lot of the similar interest in the books that we read. So I lean more independent myself. So
nice.
It's always good when there's other people who are into the independent comics.
Yeah. It's So I'll do a podcast, you guys. I have 2 of my own. It's you guys want to stop the voices in your head by listening to other voices in your head? I am available, it turns out. So
that's awesome. I know, that's great. That's good. That's awesome. Well, anyway, thanks again for doing this. We're going to talk about bombing, because that's what this is about. I'd love to.
The art of bombing, which is weird.
Bombing, yes. But so much can be learned from bombing. That's one of the great things about this and doing this podcast. Just in the years that I've been doing it, I've learned so much from talking to other comedians. So there's always something you can take. What have I learned? I learned, well, for the first thing that I learned, which I think was the most important thing, especially with comedy, was that everybody bombs.
Sure.
When I first started the podcast, it just felt like something I was doing and just me alone.
Sure, you're never alone. Yeah, whatever you think is happening, you're like, I am a unicorn, and you're like, no, everybody feels like a piece of shit in the center of the universe. You're fine.
Yep, absolutely. So, and that was one of the biggest takeaways that I learned from it. But I've also picked up like tricks for analyzing sets and ways of like rating jokes, or what you can get from transcribing sets and things like that. So a lot of like technical stuff I've learned talking to comics, just
kind of shooting the breeze about the set itself. Yeah. Like, what did you do about it? That kind of
thing. Absolutely. Yeah. So we usually talk about a time when you bombed, and then after that we talk about, you kind of learn from it and what you do to prevent stuff like that from happening, or try to prevent.
Right. Well, the crazy thing about bombing is what I do think is that there are people who have been doing stand-up comedy for decades who don't know that they're not good at it. Okay. And so one of the first things is to realize when you are not doing well. Mm-hmm. And that's why taping every time really does give you a bird's eye perspective as to how it's going, and that it can be corrected. You can get better at it. Mm-hmm. If you're, 20 years in or 12 years in or 2 years in, and you don't know that you're not doing well, but that nobody's willing to hang out with you. That is a sign that you should be taping your sets. My friends. Nobody wants that
stench.
Please. Yeah. No, it's just hard to talk to somebody who doesn't seem to be getting any better. Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
And cannot see that they're not getting, or that there's anything wrong. I've seen guys get off stage and they're like, yes. And you're like, crickets, my friend. Did you not hear the no response? There was there was a little bit of that. That's not laughter. There's a little bit of, literally you could hear people breathing. You could hear people groaning. If there's no laughs, we all get awed and groaned at occasionally, mm-hmm. right?
Yeah.
Which, by the way, if you're an audience member, don't do it. Just either laugh or silence.
Right. Laugh
but
or
I,
don't.
I get that sometimes it's with you or without the power to do anything about it. But if you maybe you should tape your response to somebody's comedy. No, then you'd be taping their comedy. But yeah, so I've eaten it so hard so many times. I don't even know where to. I mean, the way I bomb now is different from, like, sometimes it's a choice, right?
Mhm.
Because the club isn't policing the room and I can't control 150 to 300 people myself. I can, but it's not going to be pretty. And I'm going to end up making people leave the club crying.
Yeah.
So
Is that
that's
something
not
that you run into a lot? I mean, because we've
not
seen
a
it now.
lot.
I was going to say, because it seems like there's some clubs that are really good at policing bad behavior within the audience, but there's a lot that just don't care. They're just like, we just want to sell
The
drinks.
policy, yeah, there are a lot of club owners, or there is a percentage of club owners, and if there are club owners listening to this, is this you? Who shouldn't own a comedy club? They should own a liquor store.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what they want to do. They want to sell liquor. They want to sell taquitos. They want to, get yourself one of those hot dog things that spins. You don't need to have comedy. If you like comedy, sort of, have a liquor store that has an open mic once a week. Why don't you do that? Because then everyone will know what they're going to, and it won't be. Yeah,
absolutely.
Like, so, and when there is security, know in your hearts that the security has not been hired for you, the comedian. It's never been hired for you. It has been hired for their staff. You are a contract worker. You're getting a 1099. You're not their employee. You are farmed out, right? Yep. So the security people that they've hired are specifically for their staff. And yeah. So if they extend the courtesy of protecting the comic, you have to go, oh, okay, thank you. Which is why you'll see like fancy pants and mostly button pushers, but not always. But you'll see comics who work large venues who have to hire their own security. Mm-hmm. Like I don't know if Jim Gaffigan does any meet and greets afterwards, but if he does, he might have to hire his own security. Yeah. And he's not a guy who's pushing any buttons or looking for any trouble. He's not Norton. He's not DePaulo. He's not even Kathy Griffin. I'm sure Kathy Griffin has to hire. Oh, I'm sure. Just because of shitbags. Yeah. And
there seems to be a lot of them out there.
Well, they seem super vocal right now because they've been, every rock in this country is turned over and they are crawling free because they are getting like positive reinforcement from some of the shittier television programs and some of the shittier comics who are just like, yeah, you should get to say whatever you want. N-word, 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 suck my dick, and you're a pussy. And, you're just like, you're exhausting. So anyway, I ate it. I think I ate it, of course, at open mics. Luckily, never recorded because it was the 80s. And, but I think it was the early 90s when so 84 to 86, right? Was when I started. The club burned down. From like 86 to 90, I just did mics and I did tiny bit of road work. And so I really count like that I started in the 90s, unless someone's being a douche about when they started. And then I'm like 84. But and it's usually some weird dinosaur gray hair who's not, hasn't written a new joke in a dozen years. So I'm by the way, anybody listening? This is my finest hour. I'm in a bit of a pissy mood. So welcome to Podcasting 101, where I blame everything not on the audience. But I can take responsibility of the fact that, so I think I was featuring, maybe I was headlining, whatever it was early 90s. I did North Platte, Nebraska. and it was a weird run. And I used to talk about it. I did a bit about it for a while, that on my 2003 comedy special on Comedy Central, they cut the punchline. So I just sounded like a crazy person who hated North Platte, Nebraska. The audience was, there was a security guy with a gun, and he didn't do anything. And so they were, I mean, it was literally like that scene from the Blues Brothers where they're just whipping beers at you. And it was genuinely threatening and silence, and then you suck. And, it was variations of this, because and in stand-up comedy, as you know, as probably everyone who listens to your show, you got to do your time.
Mm-hmm.
You don't do your time, they don't pay you. Everybody gets very, very mad. And so you could do your time by literally just standing there, as Chad Daniels has done, for 6 minutes and just looked at his watch.
Yeah.
And then just waits for it to be over. And that is not doing well. That is, I don't know, that might be where you bomb and it's your call, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's rooms that you walk into that Albuquerque, New Mexico, walked into that one. They were not policing the rooms. It was $7 to get in. It was literally cheaper than a film, cheaper than a movie to get in. And so it was rowdy. The booze was cheap. The club owner was just a weirdo who couldn't control his own club. I walked in, his wife had dropped me off at the club. I walk into the management office. He's making out with the manager. And I was like, this is a classy joint. And so the MC had to work on the Saturday of the week, and he was the fry cook at the club. So he couldn't bring me up because he missed the end of the feature set. And so, so the feature's starting to get off, and he looks around, and I was like, I don't know where he is. Just bring me up. And he just brought me up. Yeah. So it was me just literally just yelling, and eventually, and then there's sometimes about 4 years ago, there was some weird lady in the audience who was, it was her birthday, and she was destination heckling me. And so she was in the front row whispering mean shit at me, like, you're fat. Do you like my hat?
Oh,
you're not funny. Over and over. Those are the only three I remember, but it was dumb. It was horrible. 35 people ended up walking out. I tried to do my material, but you can't do your material with someone whispering at you.
Oh, absolutely.
And the rest of the audience was like, just ignore. And I'm like, that is actually physically impossible. And so it was a disaster. And so it didn't go well. I didn't do well. Yeah.
Yeah, but that happens a lot in comedy too, where there's just situations that you can't control, and that's one of them, when you have, the person that's supposed to bring you up just vanishes. Nobody's policing. Like, you can only do so much, like you said. And then it's, again, it's that you make the choice. Obviously you got to keep going to get your money, but it's like you said, what Chad Daniels did. We're just like, just quit talking and just stand there.
Right. So what I did do at my home club, and I felt safe enough in my home club that I could do this, is there was 3 two tops. This was probably 5-6 weeks ago, actually. Yeah. And one of the two tops wouldn't stop talking. And I said to the woman, you have to stop talking. She said, no, I'm okay.
I'm okay.
And I was like, no, seriously, you have to stop talking. And she was like, no, I'm fine. And I was like, well, then you have to leave. And she goes, no, I don't. I'm good. I'm all right.
Just keep doing your thing. I'll be fine over here.
And then I said, well, then I'm going to leave. And I walked off stage. And I had never walked off stage.
Oh, wow.
And so now I'm standing backstage going, well, now what the fuck happens? I don't know what happens now. And so I go and I walk out to the bar, and I'm like, Luis, somebody has to remove her, and I'll go back on stage when someone gives me the thumbs up that she's gone. And Luis is like, what is going on? And but I guess right after I got off stage, one of the managers walked up to her and said, "That was your cue to leave." And I was like, yes, Joe, for the win. So
that's exactly what I wanted.
Yes. And it was weird because afterwards he apologized. He said, I was just about to kick out this bachelorette party. And so I wasn't paying attention to the two top right in front of you.
Oh, no.
I was like, why is this crowd so weird? What is happening to this audience? Because usually it was, that club is my favorite club. It's like, it's, usually well policed and amazing. The audiences are incredibly well trained. Because that's the other thing is if you have a comedy club or a comedy venue and you bring in good acts and you have security people who make people treat it like this theater event that it ostensibly is supposed to be, you will have audiences who know how to watch comedy, who know how to, enjoy it. Or if they're not enjoying it, they know how to get up and leave. There's no pressure. What did you spend? $20, maybe 30?
Yep.
And you didn't do any research to find out who you were going to see? Well, that's a little bit on you. So, but you can leave.
Yeah,
you can
absolutely.
just go, well, this is a wash. I got to light this $50 on fire and get the hell out of Dodge. So.
It's amazing how many people will go just randomly to a comedy show with doing zero research. They'll just be like, you know what sounds like a good time tonight? Comedy. I'm going to go buy tickets and let's go have fun. And then they're like, well, this comic is not for me.
Right. This is not anything like what I was hoping for. This is, I did a benefit the other night and the audience was fun, but the room was set up where the ceiling was super vaulted and and it was too dark, so you couldn't even see them. So all the laughs went up and you couldn't see them. And it wasn't full essentially. And the stage monitors were too hot. So there was some technical stuff. There was the room was set up weird. And so you couldn't tell if you were doing well or not. So everybody just sort of plowed through their set. And it was, so I, as much as I love stand-up comedy, those are not my favorite shows, man.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say it out loud.
It's almost worse when you can't tell if you're doing good or not. You know what I mean? Like that almost feels worse because then you're like, you think you're bombing because you can't tell. And then afterwards, everybody's like, that was so amazing. And you're like,
I had a really good time. You're like,
I wish I would have put more energy into that then. Because
I wish I would have known that while I was on stage. Sadly, I couldn't hear the laughter. Me and Freddie Prinze,
into panic mode.
Yep.
When that happens, when you're up on stage and you tell a joke and it doesn't land, or you feel like maybe you're losing an audience or part of the audience, what goes through your mind in that moment? Like, how do you try to pivot?
Well, I mean, a million years into it, right? There's all kinds of tricks, and some comics are good at it right from the get-go. They have the sort of the social skills or the stage presence, and almost all the new young comics right now are born with stage presence because they are born with a camera in their face.
Yep.
And so they don't get the same kind of stage fright. They're willing to do anything on camera. So
no dignity.
No dignity. So they win. But so you learn, what you learn in stand-up comedy is to some extent to milk the goodwill of the audience, and so if it's not going well, the first time the joke doesn't go well, you do another joke, you ignore it and go, well, I guess it didn't go well. And you keep working, you keep and then if you got a chunk, like for me, I tend to write in 6-minute bits that then take 18 months to turn into 2.5 minutes of gold. Yeah. Anyway, but it's like a 6-minute, where there's a punchline or at least an interesting fun fact every 25, 45 seconds. And if they're not into it, I would say after a certain given amount of time, I don't have a distinct number for you, but I will bail I will bail on that. I have I got 9 new premises, and there's an audience in the world who deserves to hear all of them, because they need to hear the premises that work, that have punchlines on them.
Mhm.
The 9 brand new premises are premises. They might have one punchline per premise, but they're like the biggest topic in the world. Loving someone versus liking someone. That's a premise, Dan. That's too big. That's larger than all of our heads put together. Nobody needs to sit through that and me trying to find some material about my mother-in-law, who just moved in with us. And so there's this big sort of socio-emotional, nobody needs to hear both of those joke in a set. They would like to hear about my dog. Yay. Do the dog joke. So when it isn't going well, I will literally just pivot but I will give it 2 or 3 beats,
Mhm. Yep.
And then if I try another joke and those 2 or 3 beats don't work, I try not to address it.
Mhm.
Just find the joke that they're gonna like. That's the ideal, right?
Yep.
You just keep fishing around your brain box going, what about maybe a dick joke? And then you do that. Or what about more stuff about my family? And then you go there and you're like, no, I didn't like that either. And the thing is if you switch topics like 3 or 4 times and try jokes on that stuff and nothing's working, I will go, well, they seem to, I think one of my saving lines is something like, you guys are sitting there as if you're thinking, well, she seems nice. And that's not what I'm looking for. That's not on you. That's not your fault. So, but I will say that I try not to address it, because once you draw attention to it, then they believe you. If you tell them that you're not doing well, without a doubt, they will believe you.
That's a good point. That's a good perspective on that.
If you tell them that you're tired or that they're tired, they will believe you. If you tell them that they're a shitty audience, they'll believe you. You have the microphone. Oh my God. They're going to hear what you said, and they're going to probably internalize it. And then you're going to have to dig yourself out of that fucking hole. So don't do it.
Yeah, that's
so
a
I
very
try
good
not
point.
to mention. Yeah, I try not to mention any of that shit.
With you tour a lot, you headline a lot of clubs throughout the country, festivals and things like that. When you're planning out your set and you're working on material, do you dedicate so much time within a set that you're I'm gonna try at least 1 or 2 new premises, and do you dedicate so much time out of every set for that, or how do you work out your material?
Sometimes if I do it right, when you write a set list, you should always write a set list. I don't always write a set list. You should always never open on a brand new bit. I sometimes open on a brand new bit. All of the rules of stand-up comedy are there to be broken by absolutely all of us. And then you learn the hard way. There's a reason for that rule. But because what the idea is you're supposed to, and I heard this as a formula. Take it, leave it, do whatever you want. Your best bit. Your funniest bit, you open with it. Your second best bit, you close with it. Stuff in the middle, and the second best bit. I also, if you have something that's super filthy and hard to follow, also close with that, because clearly, you don't want to have you don't want to set yourself up to go, oh, and then I wanted to tell you about my niece. Anal beads. You were just talking about whatever's putting something in your ear and it was a penis. So stop talking. Anyway, but ideally you sort of cradle it, right? You do, especially in a 45 to 60 minute set. You introduce who you are, and then do your weird socio-political viewpoint so that they're like, well, I don't agree, but she did that nice joke about, dogs. And then you do that with that thing. And then you do another chunk that's tried and true. And then you try another couple of chunks or 1 or 2 chunks that are brand new. And then you close on something strong. You got to close on strong because you got to, you got to let them know that they were at a comedy show.
Yep. No, absolutely.
And they weren't in a workshop.
Yeah. Yeah. But because I'm just curious for that, because I know for like comics like you who are touring, I don't imagine you're going, you don't have the time to be going to open mics to work on new material. So you've got to work in that new material in a set, at some point.
I just opened for Brian Regan last week, and watching him work on brand new material in front of 700 to 3,000 people is banana land. I remember the first time I was like, is he working on a new? Yeah, he is. And I guess this is where he has to do it, because where else is he going to do it?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah.
He's on the road so much. When he isn't on the road, he'd like to reintroduce himself to his children and, and just sort of, lie down for a day or two. And so, it's hard to get to mics and stuff, but yeah.
Well, yeah, even for, I'm not even touring as much as, someone like you, but even for me, I'm at that point where if I'm working the road a lot, I don't go to a lot of open mics either. Same thing. I just try to throw in, maybe I'll work on something new in the middle, but I'll, be like, I'll set a goal for that particular night. Okay, I'm going to try this new thing tonight, see how it goes. And just to start getting an idea. If I don't have time to take it to a mic, but I try to take it to a mic first.
Right. Well, and the good thing about mics is that, like, I tend to think, well, I shouldn't use a valuable stage time that newer comics need at mics.
Oh, that's a good point.
So if I go in and strong arm my way, or even sign up like a normal human being, I'm taking somebody else's 3 to 5, right? Yeah. Whatever the mic is. But conversely, it's kind of nice. I remember when I used to go to a lot of open mics, and there were working comics, and there were people who were kind of a big deal coming to do the mics. And you're like, oh, okay. It doesn't stop. It doesn't stop. You're always working on new stuff. So either way, that if there's a takeaway message here, either way, on absolutely all of my advice.
Do it all.
Or the opposite.
No. Or don't listen to anything I just said.
Right.
I love it. Now, being based in LA, do you do spots in LA on a regular too? Is that another opportunity that you can use to work on new material? Like some
That's
of the
what I
showcase
mostly
spots?
do. Okay. That's what I mostly do, because there's a lot of, bars and coffee shops and hat stores, and and then there's several clubs, and you can get up, you can and the thing is if you're one of the younger comics, I did a show the other night that is a mic. It's a 10-minute mic, so you get 10 minutes. There's only 8 spots, and they do a pull the hat thing, right? Yep. And then at the end of the night, they pull one, and that person is guaranteed a spot next week if they're still in the room, right? At the end of the night. So you end up hanging out for 2 hours, but everybody the people who get up get to do 10 minutes. And if you went up the week before, they ask you to take a bye, to take a week off. But because there's 40 comics, try to cut the world some slack. And but there's one paid spot. There's one, like, you could do 15.
Oh, okay.
So that I did that spot, and so I got to work on a bunch of new stuff in front of all comics. I mean, there were like maybe 15 normal people there, but there was like 30 comics. And that reminded me, like, because I'm 100 years old. This thing was from 10 to midnight.
Oh God, yeah.
on a Thursday, right?
Yeah.
And it's really good for people who are in like the service industry and work at restaurants and stuff, right?
Yep.
Because then after work, they can go and get a mic in, and they can figure out how to do a bit. And but then I guess from midnight to 2, there's not run by the same people. There's another mic.
Oh, wow. The same place?
Yeah, but 3 to 5 minute spots. And and I just remember being in my 20s and 30s going, no, I could do this. And but I can't do it anymore. But everybody was hanging out and having a good time and kind of riffing and, watching people that they wanted to see and not watching people they didn't want to see. The the community that is an open mic, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's I'm the same way now. I'm getting a little older. My birthday's here like next week, and I'm in my 40s. Oh, thank you. But I'm on a late show at the Plato Comedy Festival. It's at 11, and I'm like, oh my God, that's so late.
It's so late. You got to take a nap.
Yeah, I got to take a nap to get ready.
The weird thing about that Plano Festival, I forgot. So I'm doing Plano that weekend, which is outside of Dallas. The following Thursday, I'm in Austin, Texas.
Oh, wow.
Doing a different comedy festival.
Oh, nice.
But Dallas and Austin are far away.
Yeah,
Altercation, which is weird because that's what I was going to call my album. I was going to call it Altercation.
Oh, really? Wow.
But I ended up calling it Staycation because we were home and my last name's Cation. But in any case, it was going to be a pun on my fucking name. Oh, yeah. It's going to be some wordplay. Anyway.
Puns, can't go wrong with puns.
I just occasionally use your powers for good.
That's right. Well, we'll get wrapped up here. A couple things. When you look back on sets, what are some things you try to do to analyze your sets to, try to prevent something from happening or try to make a joke a little bit better?
Well, that horrible set I had with the heckler in the front row with the whispering made me, when it looked like it was going to get ugly or I was going to get too angry, it made me walk off stage.
Mm-hmm.
Because I didn't want the disaster that was that to happen again. And so you have to, there's two things that I've learned in this industry. One, boy, am I replaceable. If I am sick, I don't have to go up.
Yeah,
I can be sick. I lost my voice once. It was probably early 2000s. I had one of those coughing flus. And so I'm crying and telling jokes. And my voice is like this, and I'm telling jokes. Wasn't a great show, Dan. This isn't anything anybody wanted to see. It was in Minneapolis. Turns out there's 30 other comics who could have done my headline week. But you get these headline weeks and you're like, but it's the cool, I want to do that club. It's and you always think to yourself, if I turn down work, if I tell them I can't do something, they'll never book me again.
Yep. Yeah. And that's a scary mentality.
Right. And it is a very real thing that we all fear.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say two things. It's probably not true. And if it is true, you don't want to work for that dick.
Yeah,
if you are consistently funny, there will be work for you. You may never get famous. You may never have a Scrooge McDuck pile of money to wander about in, but you will always find stage time if you're funny. That is the rule. It is. So don't sweat. Don't let ambition affect your health. Don't let ambition get in the way of having an actual life. Like, who doesn't want a boyfriend or a girlfriend or a partner and a dog and, family? And, if your dad's dying, take a couple of weeks off. You're never going to regret being there for your parent dying and say, but I didn't do Albuquerque. And you're like, yeah, turns out Albuquerque will still be there. But your dad, your parent, my husband's father passed away like a dozen years ago and 10 years ago. And he spent and he had ALS. He had Lou Gehrig's disease. Mm-hmm. And so Andy spent 6 weeks with him. And, his career, I think, did take a little bit of a hit. But he's absolutely never going to regret not spending those 6 weeks with his pop. You kidding? And he had some trouble with this. Like, he had to make some peace with his dad because everybody's parents are, complicated.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I would say, don't let ambition, don't freak out about it. Try to be patient. It's almost impossible. And just keep writing, and don't be afraid to let go of old material.
Yeah, that's
you're
great.
Like, because you're like, I knew a guy who did a joke about his hair. He wouldn't cut his hair.
Oh,
we're talking a dozen. Yeah, he had like sort of hippie hair, and he finally cut his hair. He wrote 20 new minutes.
Oh, that's amazing.
So you're like, chill the fuck out. You know, lose the weight. You don't have to be the fat comic who does gain the weight. You don't have to be the skinny comic. You know, right? You could do all of these things. You get to still be a person and do stand-up comedy, and don't let yourself not be one just because you're like, but if I have to concentrate, and you're like, yeah, whatever. You're still going to be 100 years old and you're going to die. So don't.
I love it. That is some of the best comedy advice that I've heard on this podcast. So
good.
Thank you for that. Thank you for your time. I know you got a couple podcasts and some stuff. Where can people direct them?
I am overcommitted. If anybody likes the idea of something called the Dork Forest, I interview people about what they love. And like I did Carmen Morales about collaging. Who knew she liked collaging? She's like, don't make me a softie. And I was like, no, sad, too bad. You're already a softie. And, but there's, so it could be comic books and movies and music and action figures and nerd stuff, but it could also just be bees. It could be Emma Arnold did bees. And but it's a lot of comics. So if you Google the words Dork Forest, DORK, not dark, dork. If you Google Dork Forest, and you could either Google two things, the words Dork Forest and your favorite comedian. It could happen. Jim Gaffigan talking about newscasters, live it up. Mark Maron talking about Blue Jeans, sure. Margaret Cho talking about, I think it was sex toys. Anyway, but it was like Janine Garofalo talking about beating, whatever. There's famous people, and then there's normal. And then, or you could do the Dork Forest and something you're a dork about. Warhammer, the Elven, Dungeons and Dragons, mountain climbing, canyons, any weird fucking thing that you're into, the Dork Forest will do that. And then the Jackie and Laurie show is just me and Kilmartin bitching about stand-up comedy. And this week is extra bitchy. So get in on it. Awesome. First half hour is us literally berating our audience.
Awesome.
And you ever go to a church service where the priest is yelling at the people in the service for the people who don't come to service?
Yeah.
That's what the first half hour is. Feel free to skip it. Anyway. And then than that, I have a new album and special called Staycation, and everybody should buy that. Don't just stream it. If you listen to it more than once streaming, give me $10. There you go.
Excellent. Thank you so much for doing this podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Art of Bombing podcast, hosted and produced by Dan Bublitz Jr. and Josh Shirley for Blitzed Entertainment. Nobody Had a Podcast called The Art of Bombing was written and performed by John Hult. The stand-up soundbite bumper was provided by Joe Nicola Music. Be sure to follow and subscribe to The Art of Bombing wherever you get podcasts. You can connect with us on the web at artofbombingpod.com or on all social media platforms at artofbombingpod.